George walked into the kitchen, dropped his school bag by the door, and stopped. Cindy was standing over Gabriel's medicine tray, her back turned, pouring something from a small, unlabeled bottle into the cup. "Is that poison?" Little George asked, in a confused voice. Cindy spun around so fast the bottle almost slipped from her hand. Her eyes landed on George, 10 years old, school uniform still on, school bag at his feet. Anger immediately flashed through her face. "How dare you?" Her voice came out angrily. "How dare you ask me that question, you little wretch? You have no fear." She yelled angrily at him. George didn't move. He was scared to the core, but his feet stayed planted to the ground. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that doesn't look like medicine," he stammered. "The bottle has no label. And the way you're acting right now." He swallowed hard and continued, "It looks like poison. I'm just asking. That's all," he said, staring at her intently. Cindy stepped forward. "You insolent little maid's child," she cursed angrily. "You come into MY house, eat MY food, sleep under MY roof, and you stand there and accuse me." Her finger pointed straight at his face. "You've lost your mind. You're nothing. Your mother is nothing. And if you say one more word about what you think you saw, I will make sure both of you are thrown out of this house before morning." George looked at the bottle. Then he looked at her. "I just asked if it was poison, ma'am." His voice was quieter now, but it didn't shake. "That's all." He stood firmly on his words, despite being scared. Cindy snatched the tray off the counter and walked out. "Let me take you back to how everything started, telling you who Gabriel was, and how he has lost his only source of happiness, before Cindy crawled into his life. I mean, crawl like a snake. Gabriel built his empire strongly. He wasn't a loud man. He was a man of simplicity. His life matched his reputation. Then he met Annabella, the love of his life, and the air he breathes. She loved him in a way that felt almost reckless. Gabriel, who had never needed anyone, suddenly he needed her like air. When she got pregnant, excitement almost killed. He was so happy that day. Like the happiest man on earth about to welcome a little part of him in the world. He was ready to execute his fatherly roles. She was 7 months along when she left for her trip. Gabriel told her to wait. She told him he worried too much, pressed a kiss to his jaw, and walked out the door. The call came just before midnight. A truck had hit her car. She did not survive the harsh fatal accident. Gabriel didn't break at the funeral. He stood straight, accepted condolences with a nod, and said nothing. Everyone called it strength. But honestly it wasn't. It was the kind of shock that hollows a man out completely, where there is nothing left inside to even collapse. The grief didn't arrive in tears. It arrived in silence. In the way he stopped signing documents, stopped eating full meals, stopped sleeping in their bedroom. He moved through the mansion like a ghost wearing his own face, present, but completely gone. His wife had taken a part of him that he can never retrieve again. "Hello, my lovely family. So I only have just one question for you. Let's say you're Gabriel, and you just came back from school only to find the wife of the boss of your mother poisoning his medicine. What would you have done as little as Gabriel was? What would you have done? Assume you are Gabriel. Share your response with me in the comment section. I'll be there. Now let's go back to the story immediately. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. 3 weeks after the funeral, the doctors delivered a second blow. The grief had triggered a partial stroke. Gabriel's left side was weakening. His vision was deteriorating, blurring at the edges, then fading further each week. Surgery could reverse both, they said. The mobility, the sight, all of it reversible, if he acted quickly. Gabriel said no. No one in that room was brave enough to push back. Because how do you argue with a man who has already decided he doesn't care what happens to him next? Lucian watched her son disappear into himself for months. She was not a soft woman. She had raised Gabriel alone after his father died, built discipline into him like a foundation. Watching him deteriorate, in silence, by choice, was something she refused to accept. So she did what she believed was right. She arranged a marriage. Cindy came from a well-connected family. Composed. Elegant. She smiled at all the right moments and said exactly the right things when Lucian introduced her. Gabriel sat across from her at that first dinner and felt absolutely nothing. But Lucian had already decided. And when Lucian decided something, the conversation was already over. Gabriel married Cindy on a gray Thursday morning. He didn't invite anyone. He signed the papers, nodded once, and went back to his room. What nobody in that house knew, not Gabriel, not Lucian, not a single member of staff, was that Cindy had walked into that marriage with a plan already in place. And that plan had nothing to do with love. It had everything to do with what Gabriel was worth after he was gone. Cindy made her first move 3 days after the wedding. She simply walked into the pharmacy, bought a compound that slowed the heart gradually over time, and began adding it to Gabriel's medicine in doses small enough to look like natural deterioration. If anyone noticed, it would just look like his condition was getting worse. Which, given everything he had been through, nobody would question. She was patient. That was her most dangerous quality. The second move came a week later. She recommended a new driver to Lucian, a man named Christopher. He is very reliable, she said. Well experienced, asterisk she added. Lucian approved him without much thought. Christopher arrived the following Monday, pressed shirt, firm handshake, quiet eyes. He greeted everyone in the house with the right amount of respect and asked no unnecessary questions. Nobody noticed the way his eyes found Cindy across the hallway the moment he walked in. Nobody noticed the way she didn't look back, but smiled at him, like a girl throwing love gestures at her man. Anastasia had been working in Gabriel's mansion for 2 years before any of this happened. She came in quietly, did her work quietly, and left no footprint beyond what was required. She was very disciplined. She was a young black woman raising a son alone inside a world that had not been particularly generous to her. George was everything she had. A very sharp, brilliant, curious-driven, too observant for his own good sometimes. She took care of Gabriel without being asked to do more than her role required. But somewhere along the line, she started noticing things. The way his hands shook more after taking his medicine than before. The way his color changed on certain evenings. Small things. The kind of things only someone paying close attention would catch. She said nothing about it, because she was a maid. And maids who speak out of turn in houses like this don't last long. But she watched closely over her boss. Gabriel, from behind his failing eyes, was also watching. His vision was gone enough that people underestimated him. But he could still perceive, understand sound, and tone. The shift in atmosphere when certain people entered a room. He couldn't see Cindy clearly anymore, but he could hear her. And what he heard, on a quiet Wednesday evening, made doubt settle in his mind. He had been sitting in the corridor outside his study, something he did sometimes, just to feel the air move differently than it did inside four walls of his study room, when Cindy's voice drifted from around the corner. She thought the hallway was empty, but it wasn't. He's getting weaker faster than I expected, she said. Then Christopher's voice, very low and careful. How much longer do we have? Just 2 months. Maybe less if I increase it slightly. But I won't rush it. Rushing makes mistakes. She said to him. And the will? He asked. Already handled. His mother doesn't suspect anything. Neither does the maid. Another pause. And after that? Christopher asked curiously. Cindy's voice dropped even lower, but Gabriel's hearing, sharpened by months of lost sight, caught every word. After, everything becomes ours. The company. The properties. All of it. We just have to be patient. Gabriel sat completely still until their footsteps faded down the hall. Then he exhaled. He called Anastasia into his study the following morning. She stood at the door the way she always did. Straight. Waiting. No unnecessary movement. Gabriel sat behind his desk, glasses on, both hands flat on the surface. I need you to find me someone, he said. A trustworthy personal assistant. Someone discreet. Someone you trust with your life, because that is essentially what I will be trusting them with. He said. Anastasia didn't ask questions. She nodded once and left. 4 days later, she brought in Davis. Davis was not what Gabriel expected. He was calm in a way that felt deliberate, the kind of calm that came from someone who had learned to think before reacting. He sat across from Gabriel, answered every question directly, and when Gabriel finally said, I need you to help me watch my own house without anyone knowing I am watching, Davis didn't flinch. I can do that so you, sir. Just tell me what to do, and it's done, he said simply, assuring tone. Within a week, hidden cameras were installed across the mansion. The kitchen, the corridor outside the room, the garage where Christopher parked each morning. Every angle in the mansion was covered. Every blind spot closed. Gabriel began leaving the house twice a week, quietly, and always very early, before Cindy was awake. Davis drove him out. Anastasia covered for his absence without being told the full reason why. The appointments were with a specialist. The surgery Gabriel had refused for months. The surgery he had said no to because he no longer cared about his own life. He was now saying yes to. Not because he had found a reason to live, because he had found a reason to fight. The first procedure addressed the stroke damage. His left side began responding within days. He kept it hidden, dragging his foot slightly when Cindy was near, keeping his left hand still and curled the way it had been, performing weakness like a man who had studied it long enough to replicate it perfectly. The second procedure was for his eyes. And in the morning the bandages came off and Gabriel Kong saw clearly for the first time in almost a year. He didn't smile. He simply looked at Davis and said, "Show me everything the cameras have captured." What the cameras had captured was worse than what Gabriel had imagined. Not because it was shocking, but because it was so deliberate. Cindy moved through that house every day like a devoted wife, adjusting his blanket, asking after his comfort, speaking to Lucian with warmth and patience. And then the moment she was alone, she became someone else entirely. The footage showed her opening the medicine cabinet with gloved hands, measuring, pouring, replacing the bottle carefully before anyone appeared. It showed Christopher waiting in the garage on certain nights, and Cindy slipping out through the side door. It showed conversations through the kitchen window that were never meant to be recorded. Gabriel watched every second without flinching. Davis watched him watch it, and said nothing. When it was over, Gabriel sat back in his chair and was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Don't touch the medicine yet. Let her keep going, until when I'm ready for her." Davis nodded. That same evening, Gabriel asked Anastasia to begin preparing his medicine herself. He gave her a specific formula from his doctor, the real one, the safe one. He told her it was a new prescription. He didn't tell her why he was asking her specifically. But Anastasia, who had been watching this house longer than anyone gave her credit for, took the small bottle from his hand and said quietly, "I'll make sure it's done right." It was a Tuesday when George came home from school and walked into the kitchen. The rest of it happened the way it happened earlier at the beginning of the story. The question that came out of a 10-year-old boy's mouth with more courage than most grown men could manage, and Cindy's fury that filled the entire room. George stood his ground, shaking but refusing to move, until Cindy snatched the tray and walked out. He went straight to his mother. Anastasia listened to every word her son said without interrupting. When he finished, she was very still for a moment. Then she pulled him close, held him tight, and whispered, "You did the right thing. Don't say anything to anyone else. I'll handle it." She went to Davis within the hour. Davis went to Gabriel before the day was over. Gabriel listened, set down the report he was holding, and said, "Tomorrow." The next morning, Gabriel came downstairs at a time he never came downstairs. Cindy was already in the sitting room, Lucian beside her, Christopher standing near the door with the car keys in his hand like it was any other morning. Gabriel walked in slowly, the way he always did, left hand slightly curled, dark glasses on, each step measured. Cindy looked up with that practiced softness she wore like a costume. "Gabriel, you're up early. Are you feeling all right?" "I feel fine," he said. He sat down, folded his hands. "Actually, I feel better than I have in a very long time." Something shifted in Cindy's eyes. Just slightly. But Gabriel caught it. "Davis," he called out. Davis stepped forward from the hallway, laptop open, and placed it on the table facing the room. The footage began to play. Cindy, gloves on, pouring compound into the medicine cup. Date stamp. Time stamp. Clear as daylight. Then the next clip, her voice and Christopher's, in the corridor. 2 months. Maybe less. Then the garage. Christopher. Cindy. The side door. Everything. The sitting room went completely silent. Lucian's face drained of every color it had. Christopher took one step toward the door. Davis moved first, blocking it without a word. Cindy stood up. Her hands were shaking now, but her voice came out controlled. "That footage is manipulated. You can't prove." Gabriel took off his glasses. He stood up. Straight. Steady. Both hands at his sides. No tremor. No drag. No weakness anywhere in his body. He looked directly at Cindy, and the look on his face was not anger. It was something quieter and far more devastating than anger. "I heard you in the corridor," he said. 7 weeks ago. You and Christopher. I heard every word." He let that land. "The surgery was 4 weeks ago. I have seen everything on those cameras since the day they were installed. Every bottle. Every late night sneaking out to the driver. Every conversation." He paused. "I have been waiting for the right moment to call you out. And you gave it to me when you threatened my maid's 10-year-old son in my kitchen." Cindy's composure finally cracked. "Gabriel, please, I can explain. I was desperate. Your mother forced this marriage I never wanted. Don't." His voice didn't rise. Don't make this about desperation. You came into this house with a plan. You brought Christopher here with a plan. You had already decided what I was worth, and it was only worth something to you after I was dead. The front door opened. 2 officers stepped in. Then 2 more. Cindy looked at the door, then back at Gabriel. She sank to her knees right there in the sitting room, crying in a way that was no longer fake. Christopher said nothing. He didn't fight. He let them cuff him quietly, like a man who had always known this was how it would end. Lucian didn't speak for a long time after the police left. She sat in that sitting room with her hands in her lap, staring at the floor. When she finally looked up, it was at Anastasia, who was standing near the hallway entrance, George beside her, his small hand inside hers. I brought that woman into this house, Lucian said. Her voice was filled with shame. I put my son's life in danger because I thought I knew what was best for him. She stood up slowly and walked toward Anastasia. You protected him. When I failed him, you protected him. She reached into the pocket of her jacket and pressed an envelope into Anastasia's hand. George's school fees. For years, fully paid. Private institution, the best one. She swallowed. And there is more. For you. A property. Your name on the deed. This is just my own way of showing my little gratitude of having to take care of my son, why the evil woman was around. Anastasia looked down at the envelope, then back up at Lucian. Thank you, Ma, she said. That evening, Gabriel found Anastasia in the garden. George was inside, doing homework at the kitchen table the way he did every night. Gabriel stood beside her for a moment without speaking. The garden was still. You never asked me questions, he said. Not once. You just handled things. Quietly, without needing to know everything. Anastasia looked at him. I knew enough. Gabriel was quiet again. Then, I don't want you to be my maid anymore. She looked at him carefully. I want you close by my side, he said. Not because of what you did. Because of who you are. He paused. If that's something you'd consider. Anastasia looked back at the garden. A small smile moved across her lips. I'll think about it, she said. And Gabriel, for the first time in almost 2 years, smiled back. In life, loyalty will always reveal itself, and so will betrayal. Those who choose greed may think they are winning, but the truth always comes out, and when it does, it destroys them. Life is not about taking what isn't yours or rising through wickedness, but about how you treat people and the choices you make. We should never take advantage of people in their most vulnerable moments for our own selfish desires. Because in the end, real wealth is not money. It is character, and those who choose what is right, even in silence, will be lifted in ways they never imagined. Thank you for staying to the end of the story. Don't forget to give this story a like, subscribe by clicking on the plus sign, and share your thoughts with me in the comment section. I would love to hear everything you have to say about the story and what part you love the most. I'll see you in the next story, because I have lots and lots of engaging, life-inspiring, moral, educational, and entertaining stories to share with you, my family. So, see you in the next one. Bye for now.